Authors follow a very strange format. Instead of ready, aim, fire, they fire, and then they aim, and then they get ready. And what I'm talking about is marketing, because they'll write the book with no idea if this is the right book for the right audience or the right cover or the right content. They just write because it's fun and they think there's a market for it. But in reality, is there? Well, the only way to find out is by doing surveys. So today you're going to learn how to do a survey properly with new tools that can help you figure out how to write your book and market your book more effectively. Our guest today is John Lee. John is the founder of PickFu. John, can you tell us a little bit more about your company and what PickFu does?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Dan. So you should think of PickFu as a self-service consumer research platform. It's kind of like a digital focus group. We're taking the power of market research and putting it in the hands of the people actually doing the work. We try to make it as simple as possible to run a survey, a quick poll to your target audience and get valuable written feedback from your target audience, typically in under an hour.
Wow, that's pretty fast. I appreciate that. So tell us, how can authors effectively use PickFu to gather feedback on such things as book covers, titles, or other creative decisions?
Absolutely. So PickFu's been around as a tool for a very long time. My co-founder and myself, we built the tool for ourselves to settle debates around marketing, collateral, headlines, website designs, and so on. We wanted a way to get quick, unbiased feedback from the audience that we wanted to target. Self-publishing authors were actually one of the first verticals of like groups of people who started using PickFu outside of us. And what authors and publishers would do is they would use PickFu to put up to test book titles, book covers, descriptions, blurbs, and websites. The way they would do that is they would take versions of, let's say, their book cover that they designed or their designer designed, put up to 8 versions of a book cover up to PickFu at once, choose their audience, anywhere between 15 to 500 people, targetable by genres, like book genres and demographics and so on. And just ask, if you were browsing in a bookstore or if you were shopping on Amazon, which cover would be the one that draws your attention the most? And we launched that out. Then PickFu launches that out to our panelists. They choose, they give a written response for every single from every single panelist, and you get all that back pretty quickly.
So that sounds fascinating, but help me understand this. Are we sending the survey out to people on our mailing list, or are you creating groups of focus groups for people to look at?
Oh, great question. We have the people.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have the focus groups. We tap into the same consumer research panels that enterprise market research divisions at Procter and Gamble, the largest CPG companies use as well for their research. We're just tapping into them with software and making them targetable. So we're able to reach 10 million people in the United States, 5 million internationally from Australia, Canada, UK, and Germany. When you set up a poll on PickFu, you choose the country, you choose the sample size, and you choose the demographic targeting of the people that you want to answer your poll.
Well, that is fascinating. I'm about to publish a book on pickleball, and nice. I have a cover that I love, and I sent the cover to a private marketing agency that does private label sales. And they said, we love the idea for your book. We hate the cover. We want something more professional looking. And it really threw me for a loop. And I'd love to use PickFu to find out if I'm right or if they're right.
Absolutely. There's
for this. Yeah.
we have seen that story many times, actually, in both directions. So we've had authors who are working with publishers, and the authors hate what the cover that the publishers are proposing. And so they'll use PickFu to basically settle that debate, to put their preferred cover with their publisher's preferred cover and run a poll, and then go and present it to the publisher as evidence. We've also seen the opposite, where the author had a preferred style. In fact, we have a write-up of this on our blog. It was an author named Al Podell, And he had traveled to his life mission was to travel to every country in the world and then write a book about it. So his book was called Around the World in 80 Years or something like that. Anyways, so he was very fixated on the certain design that he wanted for his cover. His publisher had sort of a more traditional looking cover, and they went and they tested all these on PickFu. The publisher actually won, and they ended up going on and using the publisher's suggested design. That book went on to become a New York Times bestseller. And I think, and we had dinner with Al once, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you guys." That settled the responses from PickFu settled the debate more than his debate, whatever his publisher could say.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. That's a great case study. Do you have other case studies or success stories of authors who have used PickFu to improve their book's marketability or appeal?
So that one was a good one. We actually have a lot of book marketing agencies who use PickFu to validate the messaging and validate the covers and so on. And so I'm not we're under NDA, and our panelists are all under NDA for their for the polls that they see. And so generally, like, I don't have a lot that I can share, but I can share that we do have a lot of book marketing agencies using us as well.
Oh, that's a good testimonial.
Yeah.
What tips do you have for authors when creating polls on PickFu to ensure they receive valuable and actionable feedback?
So the structure of a PickFu poll right now, in order to keep things simple, is that you get to choose to ask a single question. You're not setting up like a complicated 10-question survey that takes a lot of time to set up on to set up and then also to answer. We're trying to keep it simple and keep it to one question. A lot of times what a mistake that new users make is that they want to get as much information as possible. So they'll question stuff, right? They'll, in that single field for a single question, they'll try to ask 2 or 3 or 4 questions at once, thinking that, oh yeah, I can get all this valuable information. What ends up happening is that our panelists will read that, and when presented with so many questions, they'll probably just answer the question that they want because they're used to just answering one question at a time. That's what we're telling them that they're going to do. So keep it simple. That would be suggestion number 1. Suggestion number 2 is that when you are actually comparing things, if you're comparing a cover, you should try to you should be comparing one factor at a time. We've seen so many covers that are, imagine you have cover A and cover B, and cover A has they both have different designs, but also different titles. You're not going to get a clear signal from the panelists what's actually moving the needle for them, right? Because someone might like the theme of cover A, but the title of cover B, or vice versa. And so that's just going to make your job of interpreting those results a lot harder.
Does your staff review any of the surveys before they go out to give authors some tips on what they're doing, what they could be doing better?
We do not review, for the sake of being able to launch surveys quickly, we do not do manual review of the surveys. It's up to you. We have a lot of guidance on the site. We have suggested questions as well. So am I able to screen share here, or?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so here's the quick view of the UI of PickFu. And so you can design your own poll, but we also have these things called combos, which are pre-built use cases. So we have publishing combos, for example, like a blurb comparison, a cover comparison, a product idea, like a logo test. So let's say we wanted to do a book title comparison. You can just choose that use case on PickFu, and we'll have pre-built templates here so that we can pre-populate the question, and all you need to do is add your cover variations. And so this helps streamline both the right question to ask, and then also the process for being able to publish the right kind of poll. And then you can even see sample polls and so on, comparing different covers, and see sort of the types of results that you might get from a PickFu poll.
Right. For those of you listening on audio only, we're looking at 20 or 30 more comments from people who were polled. Tell me, where do these people come from? How do you get them?
So we we work with third-party panel companies. There's already existing panel companies out there whose sole job is to recruit people and then provide a way to pull them. Typically, how it works is that the market research agencies will go and work with these panel companies directly. We tie into all of these with software. These are the same panel companies where that are used for political polling. So like during elections, when you see a certain candidate winning by a certain percentage or whatnot, those are the same people. So they're broad US consumer panels that we're able to reach.
Yeah, I'm looking at your sample here, 4 books on Korean stories, short stories for beginners, and I would have chosen an option that lost.
Yeah,
shows you what I know, because there was a clear winner here. So we really can't go by the seat of our pants here. We really need to ask people who are our target market and let them tell us what the real story is.
Yeah, and what you're seeing on the screen here is actually sort of another key use case for anyone who's publishing a book, is that these aren't actually, what I've been talking about so far is testing book covers before you launch, right? So choosing the cover of your own book. Another important thing to consider is actually the competition that's going to be out there for your book in that category when your book actually goes to market. So what we're seeing here is actually a poll, not of 4 covers of the same book, but 4 different books. And what you can do with PickFu is that you can think of it as a private sandbox, right? Like a private focus group. So if you're launching a book into the market, you're not only going to be judged, readers aren't just going to judge your book by its cover, right? But they're also going to judge your book by alternative covers, right? Like the other books that are available out there. And so this, using PickFu, is a nice way to get an idea of how potential readers may or may not choose your book or your cover over the competition. And this gives you an opportunity to tweak your cover and sort of tweak how you're marketing your book based on what's already out there, on the market.
That's a great idea. I can see, going to Amazon and seeing which books in your category are the leaders, your book against the top 3, and see which one would people buy.
Exactly.
If yours out, because all they have at that point is the cover, and will the cover sell? So very, very great idea. Cool. Let's move on. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Okay. We can go back and share other screens if you want in the future. Okay. So what are the key advantages of using a platform like PickFu compared to other methods of gathering feedback, such as focus groups or surveys? I mean, everyone's been inundated by SurveyMonkey for the last 20 years. How do you compete against those guys?
So I think where we're trying to be different is that number one, we are providing the panelists. If you have followers on Twitter, if you're fortunate enough to build a very, very, very large social following or a large mailing list, then of course that makes sense that you might want to poll them about your creative options. But I will say that having seen it, like the response, even if you have, say, a 10,000 person mailing list, if you're going to send a survey out to them, one, you're bothering your biggest fans for their feedback. Number two, the response rate on those surveys is going to be pretty low. So PickFu is trying to provide a way to tap into unbiased feedback without needing a large audience of your own. How we try to be different from others is that, one, we make it super simple to use and self-service. Number two, if you've tried to tap into audience panels directly yourself, you'll find that oftentimes the responses are not of very high quality. There's a lot of people who are just scrolling on their mobile phones, trying to click through because they're trying to get more gems for their mobile game or whatever it is that they're trying to, read past some content paywall. So PickFu, we pride ourselves on setting a very high quality bar for all the responses. So for every response that you see here, there's probably 2 or 3 panelists that we've rejected or blocked or, removed their response, because we're using machine learning, AI methodology, and also a human review as well on all these responses before they actually get to our users.
Great. So how long does it take for a survey to turn around?
As little as 15 minutes.
Wow.
So we could start a poll right now, let's say like evaluating your book cover or your website. And it could turn around in as little as 15 minutes. Most polls are done in an hour and definitely by the end of the day. It's up to you how many people you choose to take part. So you can choose anywhere between 15 people to 500 people to answer your survey. My recommendation is that you start small, get an idea of how to use the platform, and also 15 to 50 people is pretty sufficient for a direction. What you're looking for is direction and insight, right? Like that is, let's say, write your book in a flash. You have a blue cover on there right now. Is blue a better cover, or maybe like a lighter shade of blue, or maybe a green, or maybe like you just want some directional feedback first, and then you can iterate and run more polls later.
A funny story. My publisher created that design, and they had a light bulb. And I said, a light bulb says ideas and smart. A lightning bolt says fast. So they swapped one picture for another. I'm not crazy about this cover, to be honest. But I was able to get them to switch artwork, so at least it made sense for an audience. Okay. John, how can authors leverage the demographic targeting options within PickFu to gather insights from their specific target audience or reader demographic?
Right. So one thing that using the software we have, we do enable you to do demographic targeting of that audience. So all the standard demographics, age, gender, income, education level, and so on. But we're also able to do category specific targeting. So frequency of reading, like people who read infrequently to very frequently, nonfiction, fiction readers, types like book genres that they do like to read. So you can use that if you have a target readership demographic in mind, you can use the demographic targeting to really drill down and only get feedback from who you believe to be your target audience. Typically, cost-wise, that'll increase the cost. Obviously, PickFu polls start at $1 per response. That response that will scale based on the depth of the targeting and also the complexity of what they're being asked to compare. Like if you're comparing 8 things versus 2 things, then the cost will scale up a little bit. Typically, publishing polls will cost anywhere between $50 to $100 in terms of both the size and the targeting.
Right. And that's a small price to pay for not making the wrong mistake.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, is that it's not it helps your chances of success, right? It helps reaffirm. Getting feedback earlier in the process before you launch helps build your confidence in knowing that the book, the cover, the title, whatever it is you're putting out there in the world is sending the message you want it to send, and it's not being, and that message is properly received.
Great. Are there any unique insights or trends that you have noticed from the feedback provided by authors on PickFu? Anything authors should be aware of when interpreting the results?
Yeah. So we offer a number of so I guess I could answer it a couple different ways. I think trends over time is that generally simple covers are more preferred over complex covers. Obviously, that's different depending on genre, right? But particularly if you're writing a nonfiction book, the simple covers, large text, not a very long title, that kind of like write your book in a flash, like that. Yeah. Like that definitely gets a preference. We do offer a lot of tools on the platform to help interpret the feedback. And so imagine if you're running a poll to 100 people, we will get you high quality written responses, but you have 100 to read through. So we try to offer some tools on the site to group terminology. We've recently launched an AI summary feature, so we can get you 100 responses from unbiased people evaluating your stuff. Then we'll use AI to process all that feedback and create an executive summary of the poll, calling out the likes and dislikes, what people preferred of this cover over this cover, and so on. So that kind of brings you the insights faster.
Great. What additional resources or support does PickFu provide for authors who want to make informed decisions based on the feedback they receive.
Absolutely. So we have a customer success team that is top notch. I mean, in fact, they've won awards for the helpfulness of the support that they provide. We try to make the platform as simple as possible so that it's fully self-service. If you want support to strategize around the best way to test your titles, where in the process you are, you can definitely speak with one of our customer success managers, and they can work with you to help figure out the best way to market your book.
Fantastic. John, who is your ideal client and how can they get in touch with you?
So our ideal client is anyone who's working with authors, who's in the business of marketing books, producing collateral. We think that PickFu can really empower marketing creatives to produce better content and more effective content out there in the world. And we've seen studies and we've seen use cases where we're able to contribute a lot to success. Best way to get in touch with me is john@pickfu. That's my email. Go to the website. That we have contact information on the website as well. And even without contacting me, you can go to PickFu, create an account, and try it out for yourself.
Okay. And what is the URL for PickFu?
The URL is
spell it. Yeah.
pickfu.com.
Got it. Great. Well, John, thank you very much. It was very informative, very enlightening pieces of information. I'm sure everyone listening would love to not make the mistakes that could lead their book to having fewer sales and picking the wrong cover or the wrong blurbs or the wrong titles or the wrong anything. So thanks for sharing your ideas with us. And everyone who's listening, thank you very much for being on this call. We have more than 150 other videos on our YouTube channel to help you write and market your book in a flash. Check them out.
Thanks, Dan.